What is up, boys and girls? NYKF31 here, Madden 18 video. A couple of Madden Ultimate Teams here. Ultimate Team games here, I should say. Haven't really played too much of it as far as Ultimate Team is concerned. But anyhow, in this video, we're going to go around the NFL a little bit. After this week, week 4 will be in the books and will be a quarter way through. And while you can't win a championship after the first month of the season, you can certainly lose one. As far as having your season being pretty much flushed down the drain. Teams that are 1 and 2, especially teams that are 0 and 3, are pretty much staring into the abyss of oblivion. You have 2 undefeated teams in the Falcons and the Chiefs at 3 and 0, and then a whole bunch of 2 and 1s. And with the 2 and 1s, you know, you're kind of still trying to see who's for real, who's not, and there's a whole lot of football left to be played or to figure that out. First, though, I want to start out in New York with my Jets. Let's get them out of the way. You know, they're horrible. We know they're horrible. They're just about as bad as advertised. But the one thing I'll say about the Jets is that they're at least trying. You know, they're not rolling over and just allowing themselves to get steamrolled. You know, last year you heard rumblings of locker room discontent, and the 2 people that were linked to that, Brandon Marshall and Sheldon Richardson, they're no longer there. Now, of course, you don't know how true stories like that are. It's impossible to know, really. But, you know, it can't be a complete coincidence that, you know, the 2 guys that were tied to that kind of stuff when the team was rolling over and quitting are gone. And now that they're gone, even though they're still, you know, not that good, they're probably the least talented team in the entire league. They're at least putting forth an effort. I mean, if you're the Miami Dolphins, you just want to just shoot yourself in the head, playing the way you played last week. I mean, my God. Jets are out there throwing the ball to defensive linemen out in the open field and making plays. That's just absurd. And really, there's not a whole heck of a lot on that team to watch outside Jamal Adams, who has already shown that he's a player. They're already using him in some pretty dynamic and creative ways. And he looks like he's going to be a keeper for quite some time. Now, staying in the Big Apple, let's talk about the New York Football Giants, the 0-3 New York Football Giants. Not good, not good at all. 0-3 and staring a likely 0-4 right in the face when they take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unless things change drastically in a hurry for them. I mentioned a few weeks ago, I'm talking about Eli Manning and doing my quarterback rankings. I just never really liked the marriage between Eli and Ben McAdoo. I don't like McAdoo very much. But more than that, the Giants are just fundamentally broken. They did the one thing that you cannot do, and that is you cannot let the wide receivers take over your entire team. The team is all about Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham dominates everything. He runs everything. And as a result, you have a complete circus. You cannot let a wide receiver run your team. You just can't do it. And that's just one problem. The offensive line is one of the worst in the sport. And that's another problem. You have a lot of teams with just hideous offensive line play. The Giants, the Seahawks, the Colts, the Steelers have some issues. The Packers have issues. The Cardinals, they had a disgraceful display, and on and on and on. And I think I know why. There's only so much money to go around in a sport that has a hard cap. If you got a quarterback, you got to pay him unless you look into a situation where you can kind of skate on the cheap for a while, like the Cowboys are doing right now with Dak. They don't got to pay him back. The Seahawks didn't have to pay Russell Wilson for quite some time, so they could just load up and pay their defense. But sooner or later, you got to pay your quarterback, you got to pay your pass rusher, your corner, you got to pay your blindside tackle, and eventually you just start feeling the pinch and you run out of resources. You kind of just throw the offensive line together and hope they gel, hope they figure it out. And then you have situations where you got a team like the Giants with a guy like Eric Flowers. And what happened there is that the Giants made the classic mistake of reaching for a lineman in the draft who they talked themselves into believing could play left tackle. They draft him way too high, they throw him out there, and he gets destroyed. Eric Flowers should either be playing guard or right tackle, but the Giants took him with a 9th pick in the draft, so to justify that draft pick, they're going to keep on throwing him out there. So they've kind of just trapped themselves as far as that situation goes. So they can't pass protect. They can't run block. The Giants haven't been able to run block in God knows how long now. They never convert in short yardage. They haven't had a decent back since Ahmad Bradshaw. Brandon Marshall looks like he's getting old before our eyes. He can't get open, and when he does get open, he drops the ball half the time. And to make matters even worse, the defense has stopped playing. Olivier Vernon is banged up. They aren't covering anybody. Eli Apple is getting singed, and they're giving up 4.5 yards per carry on the ground. So what you have is a bad football team. People overrate the Giants because of Odell Beckham, but really they don't do anything. They don't win any games. The reality is they're just a bad football team, plain and simple. Your other winless teams, the Niners, you know, they're in that Jets category of just not being very talented. The Bengals, this is probably the year Marvin Lewis finally gets fired. They've already thrown the OC under the bus. That's usually the first sign of desperation. And they got the Browns this week, so one of those two teams is going to win. Who knows? I mean, the Bengals have some players. They should be better than this. I mean, the Browns basically have a roster full of kids. They still are growing and trying to, you know, build something. So they have an excuse at least. And the Chargers continue to be weird. They're a team that could easily be 2-1, but they aren't. But that's what bad teams do. They find ways not to win games. So there you go. You got quite a few things that are pretty interesting to me. I look at the NFC West, and you see the Rams at 2-1. And of course you think to yourself, you know, is that real? And then you look at the Cowboys who they play today, and they're 2-1. And you wondered, you know, just exactly how good they are. Because what you're starting to see with Dallas, what you're going to see more, teams are just starting to say, you know what, we're just not going to let you bully us along the line of scrimmage and run the football. We're going to put 8-9 guys along the line of scrimmage every play and make it either prove that you can run us out of it or throw us out of it, one of the two. But they're just not going to let Dallas live off of run, play action, pass all the time. They're going to force Dak Prescott to make plays in the drop back passing game. And when you have teams that have a sound back end, it doesn't always look pretty with them. That's just a fact. And whether he can prove that he can do that week in, week out, we're going to find out this season, because I don't see that changing. Anyone with a brain is going to try to play them the exact same way the Broncos and the Cardinals did. And with the Rams, the best that I can say is that they look competent. I mean, you were going into this season hoping and praying that Jared Goff isn't a complete disaster, and Goff looks like he has a clue. He really does. He has some respectable weapons now. Sammy Watkins has been good. Sammy Watkins, when he's on the field, he's always good. He just is hardly ever on the field. But when he's on the field, he makes plays. And if the offense is competent, all of a sudden, the front seven scares you again. And when you look at the Seahawks, their offensive line issues have finally reached critical mass, I believe. They just can't overcome it any longer. The Cardinals, their window has closed. Carson Palmer looks shot. You know, they had their window open for a couple of years there a few years ago, and it's done. That's what happens in the NFL. When you have your window and you don't cash in on it, you begin a gradual slide, and all of a sudden you realize you're not that good anymore. So with the Rams, the answer is, you know, maybe. And as far as the two undefeated teams, KC and the Falcons, I like what I see an awful lot out of both of them. I think there's some very good things going on there that could translate into them being our two Super Bowl teams. The Falcons, I was a bit worried about Sark, but he seems to have settled into a nice little rhythm. The week one was a little bit rocky, and they were lucky to win last week. But that's the NFL. You're going to have games like that over the course of a season. But what I like about them, they're playing irritated. They're playing annoyed. They're not moping around, feeling sorry for themselves. They're playing actually more aggressive on defense now that Trufant is back. Not enough people realize just how good Desmond Trufant is. That kid can play. He's the forgotten, really good corner in the league. He does not take a back seat to anyone. And they're dialing it up a lot more because they're going to be without Victor Beasley for a little bit. But you got a guy like Trufant there, and the rest of the secondary is pretty solid. You can do that. And then the Chiefs. The Chiefs might be the most creative offensive team in the league right now. They are a really fun team to watch. Let's talk about Alex Smith for a second. Let's talk about a guy who's completing over 75% of his passes. He's got 7 TDs, no INTs. His QB rating is to the moon. He's doing typical Alex Smith things. Spreading the ball around, not doing anything stupid, and just giving you a chance to win each and every single week. They're averaging 6.5 yards per carry on the ground. The defense is playing really well. Yeah, losing Eric Berry is going to rear its head more than likely in the postseason because Eric Berry can cover tight ends. And we all know you're going to have to deal with Gronk at some point in the postseason. And that's going to be a bit of an issue. But otherwise, I think this is the team that gets Andy Reid back to the Super Bowl. I think them and the Falcons, they just look the part right now. And you got Pittsburgh out there, the Patriots, the Packers. They're going to be heard from. I don't know what's going on in the NFC East. I'm a believer in the Eagles personally. I think they're going to arrive a year ahead schedule. I mean, just by the eye test, the Redskins look to be the most complete team out of the Eagles, Cowboys, Redskins trio there. But I think Philly's going to find a way to separate themselves from those other two teams. Let me talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars for a second, my adopted AFC team. The Jags faced the Jets today, oddly enough, and more than likely will be 3-1 by the end of the day today. The Jags, through 3 games, are 4th in the league in scoring defense. And what you notice about them is that no one throws a ball against them. They get bullied on the ground game some. They're just not that big of a team. They're not physical. They're not built for that. They're built for speed and getting after the passer and covering. And that's how they're playing, to a T. They lead the league in sacks. They have 4 INTs. They have 4 fumble recoveries already, and they have a defensive touchdown. They're doing exactly what they envisioned that defense would do when they built it. Offensively, meh. I'm going to throw out that Ravens game as a mirage, but, we'll see. So there you go. That's a little bit of odds and ends throughout the league after the first quarter of the season. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you all later. Peace.